What's up, everybody? Today we're going to see Marcelo against Pablo Popovitch. This was requested by a close friend of mine. His name is Jamie, and he actually is the one that got me into EBI many years ago. He's a really awesome guy, and just recently got his black belt as well about a year or two ago. So this match starts, and we see Pablo Popovitch jumps close guard, which is pretty good strategy actually on somebody like Marcelo. As everybody knows, Marcelo has some of the best arm drags and takedowns in the world. Especially for a jiu-jitsu fighter. And also Marcelo is extremely explosive and quick. And close guard is a position where you can slow the person down. So right now you see Marcelo, he puts his knees right over here, right under Pablo's hips, right under his butt. What this does is this takes the weight off of Marcelo's legs and lower back. And it's actually not too hard to stay in this position right over here because the weight is being supported by this little chair that Marcelo made for Pablo. And actually Pablo has to use quite a bit of energy to keep him up, to keep up in this position right over here. And Pablo, he wants to bring Marcelo down, and Marcelo wants to stay here. So this is actually a very common scenario that happens, and I wanted to really quickly highlight the importance of this. You're going to see Marcelo being here for about 90 seconds. Marcelo never loses his patience. He keeps his hands on the hips. Right over here, he's pushing on the knee. And as soon as it opens, he slices right through the middle. And let's pause for a second. So a lot of times beginners or somebody that's a little bit new or even more experienced players, they rush. And right away, they either go down or they try to make a drastic movement. And they're not patient. And this, a lot of times, is the downfall of events. And then that's what's going to lead to a sweep or a sub or some other unfavorable event. Whereas Marcelo stayed patient and just stood there and believed in the chair and opened as soon as the opportunity presented itself. As soon as he opened, right over here, this is the very first very important thing. As he opens, right away he steps this leg back, and now this leg is going to go through the middle. And as that happens, what Pablo does is Pablo reaches in for an underhook, and he goes underneath for an underhook on the leg. Guys, apologies for all these notifications over here. I gotta find a way to turn that off. If somebody has suggestions, let me know. So now that he has an underhook right over here, Marcelo, he has a few options, right? He can re-pummel, try to get his own underhook. He can look for a Kimura right over here. He can look from a front headlock Darce setups right over here. But what Marcelo is going to do is he's actually going to backstep and sit onto that side, and he's going to spend a majority of the match in that position, as we're going to see in a second. So right here, he backsteps. So this is a little bit more like old school way, where people still do it obviously, and this is a really strong passing position where when you backstep, you're looking to pass from here. Currently this is also a leg lock saddle entry. And something very important just happened a second ago that I want to highlight as well. So if we scroll through a little bit back, so notice Marcelo's right hand, right arm, this right over here. Let's watch. So right over here, boom, he shoots in for a little guillotine. And this is another thing that many high level and world-class athletes and fighters like Marcelo do. They show you things. They don't necessarily go for it to finish it, but they want to let you know that your neck is open at any time. And now Pablo, strategically, he's thinking of a couple of things. Marcelo's going for it again, just looking for that neck. Pablo knows that now he has to defend the pass and he has to defend the guillotine at any time. Okay. From this position that Pablo has, he has a few options. He can switch his hooks and starts to threaten Marcelo's back. He can use this hook and hook it under Marcelo's leg, not exactly in this position, more when Marcelo's seated, and look for it to be like a butterfly sweep in this direction, or he can wrestle from this position. And Pablo looks to be wrestling from this position here, and this is why Marcelo is showing him the guillotine, and he's telling him, hey, if you're going to come up, you may get choked. So now that makes Pablo hesitate and respect this Marcelo on top here even more so. One other thing that Marcelo can do from here that was a very old school, it's not an old school, but I don't see people do it as much anymore, is do what he did a second ago, switch his hands and grab this ankle with this hand like he's doing now and roll over his right shoulder all the way over here, and it's going to turn into like a berimbolo back take. People back in the day used to call it ninja roll. I first learned it from the Mendes brothers, and I still really love this position. Marcelo's not really going to be looking for it. It's not really part of his game, but he looks to be just like kind of like attacking this foot right over here with some toe holds and things like that to make Pablo open the legs up. Right over here. So this is actually he can look for the ninja roll, and he's looking for like little toe holds, but again, it's more so to scare Pablo and for Pablo to open up. Also, there's a kimura that's open right over here, but from what I hear, Marcelo doesn't use the kimura too often, so it looks like he wasn't really using it too much. Notice also Marcelo's foot right over here. He has impeccable balance. He keeps his balance the whole time. He's on the ball of his foot. He's not on his shoelaces, and he's pushing off to put his weight into Pablo the whole time. Right over here, the kimura is wide open, but Marcelo's not taking it. Notice Marcelo's toe right over here. He's always on that toe. He's always driving and pushing back into Pablo to keep Pablo on the side, to prevent Pablo from coming up. From that position, Marcelo also goes back and forth. And every time he goes back, notice Pablo grabs that leg. Now, this is a very important sequence. Let's watch this sequence right over here. So, as Marcelo steps that leg back, Pablo underhooks that leg right over here. And Pablo can put Marcelo into deep half guard from here, or he can use to get to his knees and start to wrestle, trying to dump Marcelo over to this side. And as he does that, as he tries to come up, Marcelo slips out the other side, and as Pablo starts to come up, he goes for a double leg. Marcelo goes right away into a front headlock. And the front headlock becomes a tool that Marcelo uses to both threaten the sub and to stay on top, as we're going to see momentarily. Right here, Pablo is on all fours, but as you can see, his posture is very, very poor. It's very hard to drive in this direction. Pablo would actually need to bring his hips down and start to drive up, or start to cut around to one of the sides to start to finish the takedown. But in here, he's just purely in the defensive posture. Marcelo keeps it, and then since Marcelo feels that he's at no threat for the takedown, Marcelo goes straight into the guillotine choke, which is one of his specialties, as everybody knows. He went for this not off of the shot, but after he paused the shot, which is also a very important thing to note. He goes for it, and now this is something else that's really important that I wanted to point out. He feels, it's hard to see the grip, but he felt that he didn't have the correct grip. He felt that the choke was a little bit off, so he goes back to the front headlock. He doesn't stand bottom and lose it. So now he looks like he's going to use it to try to go to Pablo's back. As he goes to Pablo's back, Pablo regards and again starts to go for that same underhook on the leg and on the back. Marcelo's now going to use this leg to go over his head. He's going to clear the head. And after he does that, all Pablo's going to have is a little piece of ankle, and it's going to be hard to do. So notice the way Marcelo did that is he was stuck over here. Marcelo's going to use his right arm to strip the grip and push on Pablo's head to clear his leg, almost like a capoeira movement to go around his head. Now right here, Marcelo has an underhook, and all he has is just a piece of ankle stuck. With this hand, he's going to start to cross face, and now this is a pretty poor position for Pablo. It went from, I don't know, let's say 70-30 to 95-5. And as you could see, Marcelo slipped his ankle out, and it was quite easy to pass. From here, Marcelo now is going to look to spin to the other side. My friend Greg Sabrico is messaging me. Guys, stop messaging me when I'm making these breakdowns. Greg, I love you. You know, you messaging me over here. And the store envy, that's because Jaime from Chop and Chops is helping me set up an online store later. I'm not even going to cut those things out, guys. I'm going to keep those in there. So now Marcelo goes for a little knee on belly. And he's going to leap to the other side in a second. He goes knee on belly, knee on belly. This is a drill that Van and I actually like to have the students do at the school. And now Marcelo goes for like this little paper cutter choke. Actually, some of my students will laugh because I tell them to stop doing this. It's slightly rough, and there's not so many like backups if it fails. But if the goat does it, then I guess you guys can do it too. And now this is where it becomes very interesting, because what happens is Marcelo looks for the north-south choke, and usually he would be doing the north-south choke with this arm right over here. What Pablo is doing, he looks like he's trying to escape his arm out from here, and he's going to pop out the back door in this direction right over here. And Marcelo is going to continue going. He blocks Pablo's hips with his right arm so that it's very hard for Pablo to move. And now, watch what's going to happen. Marcelo sees an opening. Since that arm is not blocking Marcelo's right arm, Marcelo's going to actually shoot the north-south choke with his right arm and not his left. Shoots it in, and now look how low Marcelo keeps his hips. He keeps his hips super low, and now his legs are extended away from his body as much as possible, and Marcelo's going to start to go downward to finish the pressure. His head started to drop down. Pablo is trying to frame underneath his neck to try to push him off, but that's not going to be too possible in this position. And now Marcelo here, he's staying like the root of the tree. I heard somebody once make this analogy for the north-south choke, which is a great analogy to make. He is staying super tight. He's going into this direction to bring his armpit directly underneath Pablo's chin. He's keeping his body down. Pablo's trying to put his fingertips right into the bicep to alleviate some pressure. This is usually not a very good sign. What Pablo in this position wants to do is he wants to turn into Marcelo, into this direction here, to try to open up the choke, in which case Marcelo could turn it into a traditional guillotine. But here it's almost impossible because Marcelo's ribs are pressing into the side of his face, and it's really hard for him to do that. And Pablo has no choice but to tap. Guys, thank you very much for the breakdown. These breakdowns are not going to be as professional as some of the other people out there. I'm going to be doing my best and learning as I go. If you have any breakdowns that you want to do, I can even do your fights if you want to. I'm trying to do one of these a day, and this helps me, and I hope it helps you guys. I think fight footage is the most important to watch. Instructionals are amazing as well, but I highly recommend to watch fight footage. You see exactly what happens real time. You see the reactions from both people, and it's really, really good to watch these kind of fights. I couldn't find the words to watch it. Marcelo and Pablo actually had a few other fights. This one is 26 minutes. I don't think you guys wanted to listen to me for 26 minutes, so I set up the previous fight. But I highly suggest to watch all of their fights.